We work hard as physicians to take care of the health and well-being of our patients. But when it comes to our money, do we have the same condition of care? Probably not. Let's change that together. Welcome to the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast, where we'll fight and advocate for your financial literacy. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. Thanks for being here. Let's jump into the show. Before we begin today's episode, let's hear from this week's sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by In-Crowd Answers. In-Crowd Answers is a platform where you can get paid to complete short microsurveys. It's great for physicians looking to diversify their streams of alternative income and earn some passive income on the side. It's free to sign up, and you can check them out by clicking on the link in the show notes below. Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast. And I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And my mission is to advocate for 4 types of freedom, which is financial, location, time, and emotional freedom. And so my mission is to go out there, interview as many physicians as I can that are on the cutting edge, doing innovative things, really creative things. And today's guest is Dr. Adam Broussard, who is a pediatric anesthesiologist based out of New Orleans. And he's going to talk to you about all of the different types of businesses that he's involved in, from real estate to syndications to Bitcoin mining. And just tonight's discussion is going to be really relaxed, and we're just going to talk about how physicians can have different interests. So, Adam, welcome.
Thanks, Chris. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I know we were talking before the show, and we have a lot of very similar interests. So tell everybody where you're from and how you got started, and your MO for. Sounds like you have so many different interests.
So I grew up in Louisiana, did med school residency here in New Orleans, then went off to Pittsburgh for fellowship, and actually worked in Oklahoma for a few years, and have been back in New Orleans for about 3 years now. We moved back after my oldest son was born, just to be a little bit closer to family. So kind of just normal story when I finished up residency and fellowship, just trying to pay back student loans and live fairly reasonably. Everything was kind of going in index funds and whatnot. And fall of 2019 started I was on track to be paying off my student loans in the summer of 2020. So started kind of investigating what I was going to do with, this large amount that I was putting toward my student loans at the time. So I started kind of investigating some rentals and real estate at that point in time. Kind of started talking to my wife about it, got really excited about her being a real estate professional. She was less excited about that. Then we found out that we were pregnant with my second son. She got even less excited about it. So then COVID and all that kind of stuff happened. So I started kind of looking for other things. Fall of 2020, I invested in my first syndication, apartment syndication with another physician. And really, when my second son was born, I had some time off and started kind of diving into other kind of personal development topics. Did a lot of reading. I had read, the classic purple book, the Rich Dad Poor Dad, way back when. But I read Cash Flow Quadrant, and a couple other, finance, and then other just kind of like mindset books and stuff like that. So I got really deep into that while I was on paternity leave. And at that time, I actually decided to become a life coach too.
Yeah.
So I started life coach training in September of 2020.
Nice.
Started coaching other physicians. Um, and I really saw a very common thread. Majority of the clients I was coaching were other male physicians, and everyone was burnt out. They felt like they didn't have good work-life balance, which I kind of have issue with that concept or that
Oh.
statement. I think it's more of a work-life rhythm. At different times call for different things, but um, the more I talk to people, the more I coach people, the more it came up. So, like I said, I have two sons. I have now a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and it was a lot of the same stuff that I was dealing with. Like, I spend all this time at work, and then thankfully as an anesthesiologist, I don't take a whole lot home as
Mhm.
much as some of primary care people that I have to finish charting and whatnot. When my shift's done, it's pretty much done.
Mhm.
Outside, a couple random phone calls. But you still think about, like, what did you do the right thing? Could you have avoided something, whatever.
Mhm.
um so I actually started looking for a physician dads group
Nice.
and see if there was anything like that. And I found the big group on Facebook, and it just wasn't what I was looking for. Yeah,
Oh.
it wasn't focusing on those type of issues.
Mhm.
So I created my own. So I founded Dads Before Doctors. The beginning of the year, kind of slowly. So it's just a group of male physicians that want to be dads before doctors, just kind of as the title says, that they want to be known as fathers before physicians, and rather than physicians that are fathers. um so right now it started off as just kind of a Facebook group, and we'll talk about different things. It kind of established kind of the 6 pillars, being like wealth and legacy, your marriage, your parenting,
Mhm.
your health and wellness, emotional well-being, kind of mindset, and that kind of thing. um so since then, I've started a podcast also.
Nice.
So we'll interview other people that I think would be beneficial to physician dads. Mostly physician dads, but sometimes we'll have other guests that just might be helpful. Um, so hopefully in the future that'll turn into something a little bit more formal, some type of like mastermind group that we can actually connect with each other, and via in person at retreats, or Zoom on online type of mastermind things, and potentially retreats in the future. So
Nice.
uh,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, you brought up a lot of interesting. Um, so really, you're describing, the medical profession where, we're having increasing stresses from all directions, and with the pandemic, that didn't help a lot. And so, a lot of doctors, such as yourself, you're going out and you're creating, trying to bring out awareness and trying to bring people to different aspects. So one thing I like that I was really interested was, you said you couldn't find the group that could support your needs, so you went out and created your own, which was very proactive approach. So, and then and tell us that if people are interested. So your Dads Before Doctors, that's going to be put in the show notes as well as the podcast. And really, you're coaching physicians, which is really wonderful thing to do. So if starting your own pod, how somebody, a physician listening to this, they're afraid of starting a blog or podcast or coaching, what is your advice to them?
Just start, just do it. Like it's been really rewarding. Like honestly, I haven't put out a whole lot of episodes, but the
Yeah.
first one I put out, literally I had a phone call from a guy I graduated high school with that I hadn't probably spoken to in 20 years since we graduated high school. Just congratulating me, like catching up, like
Yeah.
how awesome that was, like how excited it was. And I just the things that people have shared in the group and reached out for to other physicians that have the same common experience,
Mhm.
um and know what's going on. That's what one thing I think is a lot of the coaching clients really find helpful is they don't have to spend half their sessions with a non-physician coach explaining what they're talking about or explaining like the dynamics of a hospital and administration or nursing or whatever. Like
Mhm.
you just what they're talking from the beginning.
Yeah.
um so as much as I am actually a member of several other masterminds that are heavily real estate slash entrepreneurs, and I get a lot out of that, having that different perspective.
Uh-huh.
But I think there is something to say for having groups that can relate to you a little bit easier,
Yeah.
because a lot of it is a lot of the I was actually on a call yesterday with one of them, and Jeff Woods and Dan Sullivan were on it from the One Thing and Strategic Coach. And a
Mhm.
lot of it was, talking to, these entrepreneurs and talking about like how their calendar is set and like how much of that was, your zone of genius and whatnot. And I'm like, well, like I put people to sleep, I woke them up. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I want to transition into real estate because real estate is very popular among physicians. So tell us
why
oh
that for you to not be fired? And I was like, well,
yeah.
pretty much everything I do, like I think for the most part. Um, so it doesn't always connect with some of the things.
Yeah.
So I think having that group, of physicians really is going to be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so well said. You also mentioned that you invested in real estate, which is really popular among physicians. So tell, for the new listeners, why is physician real estate and such a hot topic for doctors?
Yeah. So, like I said, we had initially kind of looked into long-term rentals. We, like I said, kind of had talked to my wife about real estate professional, and if we were able to achieve that, there would have been some nice tax deductions that we could have written off against my W-2 income.
Um,
Because unfortunately, there's not an option for me to be strategic about changing how my income is or being being 1099 or anything like that. Um, so when we kind of took that off the table, we actually decided to invest into short-term rentals because you are able to um, take some of those write-offs if you meet certain qualifications. That's a little bit easier to meet um, if you have short-term rentals that are less than 7-day averages. Um, and you have materially participated. So we actually bought our first short-term rental last we closed on it last November.
mm,
And that was a pretty wild ride. We kind of looked at different areas, but we contacted the real estate agent in Asheville, North Carolina, think I sent her the email on Sunday. We had a phone conversation on Monday. She sent us a listing on Tuesday, and we did a FaceTime showing of it on Wednesday.
Mhm.
We liked it. She brought a property manager over later that day who also liked it. And we had a signed purchase agreement that Wednesday. So in a course of about 48 hours from the first time we contacted the real estate agent, we had a signed contract. Um, so it doesn't always happen that way. We, like I said, we still are just at that one right now.
Yeah.
But we're actively looking for another one. We ended up doing some renovations, so we didn't really go completely live until Memorial Day weekend. But in the meantime, I have invested in some syndications, both multifamily, hospitality. Um, Invested in some private equity deals. Um,
Nice.
yeah, so just
Yeah.
trying to build some of that cash flow to you know be able to live life a little bit more on my terms.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned a lot of things, real estate, the cash flow, the appreciation, the your debt payment stays the
Mhm.
same, but your serve, but then you can
Yeah,
always the
and
rent. Go ahead.
that's another good thing about the short-term rentals is that you're able to do it as a second home loan. So you get the interest rate as if it's a regular loan and not an investment loan.
Yeah.
So I think our interest rate's like 2.6,
Oh, nice.
like
Yeah.
something ridiculous. It's lower than my primary residence. Like, so it is actually appreciated. Like, we did a lot of work on it, but it's also just appreciated. And like, I'm kind of hesitant to refinance because I know it's going to be a lot higher than that probably
Yeah.
if I refinance it out.
Yeah. What's the difference for the listeners between a real estate syndicate and direct active real estate, which you were talking about?
So with the our short-term rental, we own it. Our name is on title. We make all the decisions. We all the way down to we pick the tile, we pick the furniture, like everything, every last thing
Oh,
is on us. When things ran over, we had to put more than we allocated than we had initially planned in the renovations. Like, that came out of the paycheck.
mhm.
With syndications, you are what's called a limited partner. So the general partners have complete control over it. They make all the decisions. You essentially send your 50,000 whatever, wire it over to them. And once you've done your due diligence and you've decided that you want to invest with these people and in this particular deal or this fund, um, your job's done. So you just wait until they, deposit some money in your check, monthly, quarterly, yearly, whatever they've agreed upon, and then wait until they have deemed that it's time to refinance or sell the asset. Um, then you get to figure out what to do with the money when it comes in.
Nice. So sounds like, so with real estate, you're in the syndicates, you're investing with a group in a pool, so it's not as opposed
Exactly.
to direct active, so it frees up your time, and also gives you greater access to bigger deals. So um in the prior, we were talking about, you're also invested in a mining, Bitcoin mining, if I heard that correctly. So tell it that's very, I'm also a very big enthusiast in the DeFi crypto space, just for the technological innovation. So I'm sure a lot of people would be interested in hearing about that.
Yeah, so it's a private deal. not really sure how much of it I can talk about it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's a mining deal. They've produced it's a fairly large Bitcoin mine
Oh,
that they've continuously expanded. Um, Sounds like they're positioned pretty well, and hopefully it will do well in the future, and we'll do what they say.
yeah. Well, Bitcoin has, made headline, headlines, for the last, couple years. It's everything from a bubble tulip to a Ponzi scheme to the next internet. So, and then I know mining has gotten a lot of criticism for the energy.
Yeah.
The
Well, that's one thing about this group is that they do it from what I understand, they are fairly green
yeah,
comparatively,
yeah,
and trying to do it responsibly.
yeah,
And that was one thing I did, appreciate about them. I don't know enough to make a long-term bet with Bitcoin in my,
mhm,
so I don't personally own any, Bitcoin individually.
yeah,
But I felt that the, they sell it, as soon as it's mined.
uh,
So it was more of I guess, a short-term bet that it was going to stay reasonably high
yeah.
for a period of time. And hopefully it goes up to what they say it will in the future. Like, hopefully it does go to 1 million. I don't know, but
Yeah.
um,
Well, it's,
we'll see.
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very fascinating topic for me. I've been just keeping track of, the innovations, and I think recently China they banned
Hmm.
all mining. So
Mining, yeah.
now a lot of mining companies are coming to, especially I know one's moving down to Austin. And a lot of they're moving all their facilities down into the United States, which is
Hmm.
going to be really interesting. It's just a fascinating field. It's, there's good and bad players. So, but for the physicians, don't invest in something you don't understand, and just it's just this is just we're just discussion for the sake of
Yeah, I mean,
discussion.
I think it's definitely something exciting, and I mean, with NFTs and real estate backed coins, and I think people are doing some really interesting stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
well, that's cool.
it's something I need to learn a lot more about, but
uh
it I I've listened to some of the stuff about, some of the coin, like real estate backed coins, that it's easier for you to, get in and out of those syndications because
yeah,
you just sell the coin, like the coin
uh
that is related to it. So
yeah,
maybe in the future.
yeah. Well, you've we this has been a fascinating discussion, and we hope to have you in the on the podcast as another returning guest. One thing that's really stuck out to me is just your variety of interest, and so there's a couple, you could do it because it's really interesting to you. Some physicians are just try to maintain a balanced lifestyle. Some are trying to create side income so to cut back on their hours. So what drives you for all these different interests? Is it just curiosity, creativity, the ability to make extra side income?
I think it's a little everything.
uh,
I've always been, a big, lifetime learner. I think we've always, as physicians, we've always been, okay, now what?
uh-huh. Oh yeah,
Um,
that's right. You're absolutely
so kind of like what I said in the beginning, like, okay, I'm almost done paying off my student loans, which I haven't paid off yet.
uh-huh.
Um, they actually, because my interest rate started going down so low, I think they're at like 0.15% right now. So I just stopped. Like, I'm just paying minimum payments now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to drag them off as long as I possibly can now.
Yeah.
So like I said, like I was always focused on paying off the student loans, like doing whatever.
Yeah.
So then, found something new to start learning about. So, I took a active real estate class. I took a um, class on syndications. I took a class on Airbnbs. I've taken, classes on buying small businesses. I just keep collecting classes.
That's yeah.
So I think it is a hunger for learning.
That's good.
Um,
I love learning.
a hunger for self-improvement and that growth mindset.
Yes.
And the more, I know it's cliche, but like surrounding yourself, the 5 people you surround yourself with, that'll probably be the average of your income, your weight, your dreams, everything.
Yeah.
And just being really intentional about that and who you choose to spend your time with. And even who you choose, like down to like how you spend your money, who down to like what restaurants and what businesses you choose to support. It can make a really big difference. And I think in general, most physicians are kind of in that fixed mindset that, everything has kind of come easy to us.
Yeah.
And we always had to be the best. And if you weren't the best, you weren't the, highest achiever. When you have that discomfort and you have to be a learner again.
Yeah.
And I think just embracing that like uncomfortableness and embracing, that uneasiness, branch out and do something different. And just because, you were told to go to college, go to med school, get good grades, get in a good residency, then like put your money in index funds for the next 35 years and then you can retire. Like
That doesn't cut it anymore.
that does, like, ask questions, like think about it, like just do what's gonna, it's I think a lot of people have that get into even into the, the fire mindset and community and stuff like that. Like it's all of, you kind of get back into that, like that pre-med, med school, residency, like, okay, I'm working toward this goal, and you forget to enjoy that 30 years of working when your kids are growing up, when you're, young and with your spouse, and like you can, it's all for, whenever I can fire, and then I'm going to have a great life. But if, who knows what's going to happen during that time. Like if you're working 80 hours a week and then, doing locums, doing this, doing that, like, I mean, even, if you get too heavily into, you go to work, then you go do real estate, then you do this, then you do that. Like, and it's something I, kind of struggle with too. Like, um, trying to find that balance, or that you don't want to be like, okay, I've hit my number and my wife doesn't talk to me anymore, my kids don't talk to me, like I missed out on them growing up, now they're teenagers, they have their own life, like I haven't been part of their life, my wife has her own life, like now you're financially free and retired, but like you're all by yourself, like what's the good of that?
Yeah.
So enjoying the journey, you know, trying to, have some of that, cash flow or something now, so you can enjoy, the process, and, maybe go half-time,
Uh-huh.
maybe go 0.8, like, just so that it doesn't have to be all about retirement. Maybe take a sabbatical, maybe do mini retirements in
Yeah.
between jobs. Like when you switch a job, like take 6 months off. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much you've mentioned so many things: freedom, time, financial, location, emotional. So this was a fantastic conversation. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they get it? Your website or email? How can they follow you?
so website is dadsfordoctors.com.
Uh,
There's also Facebook group by the same name.
okay.
And you can email me at adam@dadsfordoctors.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on here, and you've dropped so many gems of wisdom.
I appreciate it, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast episode with our fantastic guests. Once again, let's give a shout out to this week's sponsored In-Crowd Answers. In-Crowd Answers is a platform specifically for professionals that get paid for their expertise in answering short micro surveys. If you're a professional, especially a physician, looking to diversify your passive income streams or earn some side income on the side at no cost or obligation to you, it's quick, easy, convenient, and free to use. So you can go there by checking out the link incrowdanswers.com in the show notes below. I hope you enjoyed that episode, and we'll see you next week. What a great episode with this week's guest. I have a small ask. Do you mind finding the show on Apple Podcasts and submitting your review? By being here week after week, you're that much closer to having the knowledge you need to find your version of financial freedom. Let's help other physicians see that they can do that too through you. Thanks again, and see you online or on next week's episode.